The moving truck had barely stopped when I spotted HOA woman in a pastel tracksuit, arms crossed, staring me down like I'd just broken the Geneva Convention by arriving on her street. She didn't wave, didn't smile, didn't even bother with a neighborly hello. The very first words out of her mouth weren't welcome, but you can't park there. The driver hadn't even finished lowering the ramp. My furniture was still in the truck, and already I felt like I'd stepped into some weird neighborhood drama. What killed me was this wasn't even her territory. My house was right on the edge of the subdivision, technically outside of the HOA's grasp. I made sure before buying double-checked with a real estate agent, county clerk, and even the HOA's own boundary map. I wasn't looking for trouble. I'd seen enough neighborhood horror stories to know to avoid getting wrapped up in one. But apparently, Karen, a woman with a sour stare, hadn't gotten that memo. "You must be new," she said, dripping condescension like honey on a cold day. "I'm Karen, president of the HOA." She pointed at the street as if I didn't know what pavement was. "This whole road's my jurisdiction. You'll need to move that truck now. It's blocking traffic." I looked up and down the wide, empty street. Not a single car trying to pass, just the distant whine of a lawnmower. "Traffic," I echoed, fighting a smile. "Yeah, I'll keep an eye out for rush hour." That sarcasm didn't land the way I'd hoped. She wanted fealty, not wit, and I wasn't in the mood to join the Church of Karen. The movers ignored her, which meant they'd probably dealt with her type before. I just shrugged and headed inside, tossing over my shoulder, "Thanks for the warm welcome. I'll be sure to wave at your jurisdiction." But Karen wasn't the type to take the hint. She followed me up the driveway, lecturing me about community standards and neighborhood property values, rattling off rules like she had the entire HOA handbook memorized. I let her talk until we hit my porch. Then I turned and said, calm but firm, "This property isn't in your HOA. Check your bylaws." For a second, I saw the doubt flicker. Maybe she realized she'd overstepped. But entitlement is a stubborn beast, and within seconds, she was back at it. "That doesn't matter. This street belongs to the community. I won't have outsiders dragging down the neighborhood." "Outsiders," she said like I'd hopped aboard her. She insisted I attend monthly meetings and submit a landscaping plan. I almost burst out laughing. Instead, I just said, "Sure, I'll submit a plan. Thinking of putting in a few concrete gargoyles with glowing eyes. Think that'll pass your standards." She looked like she'd bitten into a lemon, spun around, and stormed off. I thought that might be it, but the way she stomped down the street, muttering, told me I hadn't seen the last of her. The rest of that day was all boxes and sweat, but when the movers left and I finally got a beer on the porch, there she was across the street, gossiping with two neighbors, gesturing in my direction every couple minutes. I heard snatches. "Wrong type of people, property values, rules." One guy in suspenders squinted at me like I was already guilty. I raised my beer and toasted them. Karen turned away. Message received. I'd been marked. Next morning, a letter taped to my doorknob stamp, no envelope, just the HOA logo at the top and a list of violations. Visible trash bins, no mailbox design submitted, hedges too tall. Thing was, the trash hadn't even been picked up, the mailbox was standard issue, and my hedge was barely knee-high. Karen had officially declared war. That night, I walked my property line with a county plat map in hand. Sure enough, my lot stopped just short of the HOA boundary. Mailbox, driveway, even the slice of street out front all outside her jurisdiction. The idea that I could plant neon palm trees if I wanted was almost as refreshing as my beer. But Karen wasn't giving up. The next day, another letter, this time about my truck, which was parked perfectly in my driveway. She'd underlined community safety hazard 3 times in red. So, for fun, I bought a row of flamingo lawn ornaments bright pink, impossible to miss, and lined them up on the edge of my yard. By sundown, Karen was banging on my door like she meant to knock it down. "You can't do this. It's against the rules." I just leaned in the doorway and asked, "What rules?" "Your HOA doesn't cover this property." Her face turned the color of a stop sign, but all she managed was, "It lowers the tone of the neighborhood." I grinned. I thought it raised it. She stomped off, promising to bring it up with the board. Monday, a new notice on my garage. Due to adjacency, your property is under HOA oversight. She threatened fines if I didn't comply. The legal jargon was garbage, but the threat was real. She was hoping I'd fold. Instead, I poured a beer and waited. Karen wanted a war. She was going to get one. What she didn't know was I'd spent enough time around bullies to know patience pays off. That weekend, Karen showed up with 3 board members' clipboard, sunglasses, the whole 9 yards. One guy with a camera started snapping photos like he was documenting a crime scene. "We voted," she declared, thrusting a paper at me. "Your property is now under HOA jurisdiction." I just raised an eyebrow. "You 4 voted? That's cute. But unless you're the county zoning board, your vote means nothing." She ordered more photos, threatened official violation notices. I smiled. "Do what you have to, but you might want to check with a lawyer before you start handing out monopoly money." She spun and stormed off. By Monday, an orange violation slip for flamingos, landscaping, mailbox all with $200 fines. Her commitment was impressive, honestly. She'd built an entire fake bureaucracy out of thin air. So I got creative. Downloaded a county clerk letterhead, cited the subdivision boundaries, and wrote a polite warning that further action would be harassment. Dropped it in Karen's mailbox. The next morning, she was out there, crumpled letter in hand, shrieking at her board. That afternoon, another letter at my door. "Cease and desist illegal threats." I nearly laughed out loud. Her next move? She hired a couple of landscapers to trim my hedging of my property without asking. I came home to find them mid-snip. "The HOA hired us," one shrugged. "You're trespassing," I said. Karen was across the sidewalk, yelling, "This is HOA property." That was it. I called the sheriff. 20 minutes later, a deputy arrived. After seeing my plat map, he told Karen, "Ma'am, this isn't HOA jurisdiction. Step onto his land again, and it's trespassing." Karen's face fell. Her board suddenly looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. As the workers packed up, the deputy told me to call again if there was more trouble. But Karen wasn't done. Soon, a petition was circulating trying to annex my house into the HOA. It landed in every mailbox, listing my crimes, my truck, my flamingos, my existence. Neighbors rolled their eyes. "She's lost it," one whispered. "We're not signing." That's when I realized Karen's hold on the neighborhood was cracking. People started coming to me, telling me stories about her. Turns out, nobody had ever stood up to her before. She'd ruled through fear and inertia, but now her power was evaporating. Still, Karen doubled down. Flyers, signs, Facebook posts painting me as a menace. She even painted private road HOA only across the street and put up a gate with orange cones. The county sent a crew out to remove it all, warning her about tampering with public property. Did it stop her? Of course not. She had my truck nearly towed, called the cops with false reports, even put up "warning, registered menace" signs. But each time she struck, I recorded, documented, added to my evidence file. Neighbors laughed. The board fell apart. Even her allies peeled away. Her grip was gone, and she spiraled harder, renting a shipping container as an HOA headquarters, a steel bunker that made the local news. When the county hauled it away, the neighborhood threw a block party. In the end, Karen stood alone, clutching her clipboard in a kingdom of one. The street was peaceful for the first time since I'd arrived. Folks waved as they walked by, kids played, the air lighter somehow. But I kept my camera charged, just in case she tried to stage a comeback. You never know with people like her, they always think the next act will be the one that wins. So what would you have done? Would you stand up and fight, or lay low and let the Karens of the world run the show? Drop your thoughts below. Let's hear your wildest neighborhood stories. Because trust me, everyone's got one. And if you made it this far, hit subscribe and join the community. There's always another chapter just around the corner.